Politics, whether a hot dog is a sandwich or not, and the new Champions League format. These are the most divisive topics in the world at this time. I'm not going to clear up any of those topics. I don't have the answers for you. I just needed an opening line for this video, and that's what I came up with. So subscribe for more profound content from Rabona TV. You also get Champions League coverage all season long, and it really will be all season long, as the new Champions League will now be contested in every single month of the most common European football calendar. That is, if you include qualifiers as well. So let's sort out where everyone will land in this predictions video. And if you think you are an absolute genius when it comes to this stuff, why don't you test your football knowledge with FC Quiz? It's a free app. Better yet, join the Rabona TV Club in FC Quiz, linked below, and see how you stack up against myself and other Rabona TV community members. Quizzes on the Champions League, daily quizzes, Premier League, La Liga, everything. So use the link or just search Rabona TV in the club section and we'll see you in there. Now, back to it. The order of the teams doesn't really matter in this video. Sounds stupid saying that for a prediction video. Because all that really matters is what part of the table they finish in. Top 8, straight to the round of 16. 9 to 24, you're still alive, but you're in the knockout round playoff. 25 to 36, hang your head in shame. You wasted everybody's time. Feel free to scream that at me when Benfica finishes in the bottom tier of the table. Now, of course, there are 36 teams in this tournament, so we better get started here. We've got a lot to cover. So guys, the more that I have poured over this competition and all of the matchups for every team, the more that I have realized that one of the most important aspects of this competition is winnable matches. Wow. Like I said, subscribe. Profound stuff. No, but to be serious here, is the matchups you get against the teams from pot 3 and pot 4. Now, there's of course a wide spread in each pot, but I find that it's the most prevalent in pots 3 and 4. And for the mid-tier teams, those become must-win matches for them. Those become the difference makers. Those are the teams that managers will be realistically looking to maximize their points from, right? In fact, when trying to decide where each team finishes, you're basically trying to differentiate between the toss-up matches and then the ones that you see them realistically winning. We have no idea how it will shake out, but I feel like the top teams will win 5 or 6 of their 8 matches. Playoff teams will win probably around 4, and the bottom feeders around 2 to 3. Something like that, right? Then of course, there will be a mix of draws in there as well, and all those toss-up matches that are definitely harder to account for, usually. So with that in mind, let's start with the teams that I think will be fighting with and subsequently achieving elimination. What a nice positive spin on that, eh? Congrats, you have achieved elimination. Let's run through this. Starting in 36th place, we have Slovan Bratislava, and while they are in 36th in my league, they are the first Slovakian side to qualify for the Champions League since MSK Zelina, about 13 years ago. Now, as a pot 4 side, they have a difficult set of fixtures, eh? There's no real relief for them anywhere. Just look at those pot 1 and 2 sides. Yikes. On the bottom now, they could maybe steal something from Dinamo, but even they are looking a lot stronger than last term, so that will be difficult. Just ahead of them in 35th, I have Sparta Praha, the guys who got smashed 11-2 on aggregate by Liverpool last term in the Europa League. They avoided Liverpool in the draw, which I'm sure they're happy about, but still have to play Inter, Man City, Atletico, Leverkusen. Not a breeze for them. They ran the gauntlet in qualifying, playing in every round possible, but I don't think they'll enjoy themselves on the football pitch this go around. Their match against Stade Brestois could be the only win that they get, and even that's not a guarantee. When it comes to the Swiss side Young Boys, they have been in the Champions League quite regularly, haven't they? And their qualification against Galatasaray was both impressive and incredibly entertaining. Galatasaray are a bit off at the moment. They brought in Osimhen to add to their already strong strike pool of Batshuayi and Icardi. But hey, forget about the suffering defense. Anyway, Young Boys got very difficult opponents for their pot 4 matches in Aston Villa and Stuttgart. That's a dagger to the heart, isn't it? One of Young Boys' opponents, Crvena Zvezda or Red Star, is who I have in 33rd. They will play likely eliminated sides grudge match together. Red Star can perhaps get a victory over Young Boys and perhaps against Benfica as well, depending on how big of a crap show Benfica are at the time. But they also have both Milan clubs. Barcelona and their pot 4 opponents are difficult in Stuttgart and AS Monaco, as tough as they come, who have been playing really well under Adi Hütter. Stade Brestois were not playing well under last season's Liga and Coach of the Year Eric Roy until their match right before the international break, in which they cruised past Saint-Etienne 4-0. Turning point for them we'll see on Saturday against PSG. They shocked everyone with their third place finish in Ligue 1 last season. It wasn't supposed to happen, and I made a documentary on it live from Brest, speaking to Eric Roy, Steve Mounier, sporting director Gregory Lorenzi, and some supporters. But anyway, if they can find their form from last season, they will be a plucky, frustrating side. Real Madrid and Barcelona? Yikes. But the rest, not horrible, but elimination seems like their ceiling. Sorry. I love them, but sorry. SK Sturm Graz are in the final stage of the Champions League for the first time since 2001. The Austrian Fellers have been on quite the run recently, winning 5 matches on the trot across all domestic competitions. When you look at their fixtures, they have tricky but doable teams from Pot 1, as far as the Pot 1 teams go. Pot 2 is hard to say, as you never know what you'll get from Gasperini's Atalanta. Pot 3, Lille could be a team that they take points from, but Sporting will be very difficult for them. And their Pot 4 homies, Stade Brestois and Girona. Girona will be hard. Stade Brestois are a team they can definitely get a win against, but not guaranteed. Celtic are a side that tend to play well in the Champions League for the most part, but with the asterisk being, even when they play well, they can't take their chances and they end up losing matches that they shouldn't, unfortunately. They have the same Pot 1 teams as Sturm Graz, actually. They have the same Pot 2 teams as Sturm Graz also, but they were a bit unlucky in getting Aston Villa from Pot 4. Otherwise, I'd say they could finish a bit higher, but I have them in 30th. Just ahead of Celtic, I have Club Brugge, who have a fairly difficult draw in my opinion. The defending league champions also had a poor start to the season, winless in 3 matches, but have since won 3 consecutively. They actually do kick things off with a match at home against Borussia Dortmund, which, if they can steal a win there, will put them in a good position, as the other Pot 1 and 2 teams are Man City, Juve, and AC Milan. AC Milan away. Then they have difficult Pot 3 and 4 teams in Sporting and Aston Villa. Sturm Graz and Celtic away could also be very tough. Dinamo Zagreb looked a bit shaky last season before they eventually pulled themselves together and won a record-extending 25th league title, their 7th consecutive league title in Croatia. They beat Karabag in qualifying, made it into Pot 3, and were handed Dortmund and Bayern, Milan and Arsenal, and the unfortunate luck of getting both the Austrian side Salzburg and one of the most difficult Pot 4 teams, AS Monaco. Bratislava and Celtic are the matches they'll look to, and something tells me that they could get revenge against AC Milan after that 4-goal smashing from 2 years ago. We're almost done with these teams. Bologna is next, and of course they haven't made it to this stage of the Champions League since the 60s. And by this stage, I mean the final stage, the stage that comes post-qualifiers, you know? As of course, nobody has played this league phase before. After such a great season under Motta, these dudes were raided. Motta is gone, Calafiori is gone, Xerxes is gone. They bought players as well, but we'll see how they gel under Italiano. Anyway, they have both of the Lisbon sides, Lille and Monaco, as well as Liverpool and Aston Villa. That's not easy. Very difficult for Bologna. Speaking of difficult, Benfica's season has been hard enough with the selling of quality players and the sacking of Roger Schmidt already. Now we have Bruno Lage back, a guy who simply hasn't been able to win matches at all since leaving Benfica. Now he's back at Benfica with a 2-year contract. They rewarded him for that. Nice. Well, Benfica has Barcelona, Bayern, Atleti, Juventus, Feyenoord, who we beat in preseason 5-0, Bologna, Monaco, Red Star. I don't feel good. Benfica's going to get eliminated. I'm pretty sure. Just ahead of Benfica, but the final team I see as getting eliminated, Girona. They were the surprise of La Liga. They had a rough start to the season as they lost key players like Dovbyk, Savio, Alex Garcia, Jan Couto. So that was always going to be difficult for Michel, but they strengthened as well. That said, look at these fixtures. Liverpool, PSG, Arsenal, AC Milan, 2 difficult Pot 3 opponents in Feyenoord and PSV. Major test for Michel and the boys, and I think they'll just fall tragically short. This draw felt like, hey, you said you wanted Champions League, so here you go. Good luck. So these are the guys who I have from 36th to 25th. These are the teams I have getting eliminated. Let's move on to the playoff sides, the biggest group of all. The team I have just ahead of the eliminated Girona is RB Salzburg. Jurgen Klopp's longtime assistant Pep Linders got the head coach position here and will be looking to make a splash. They actually lost their latest match away to Rapid Vienna, but they do have a game in hand, so don't take too much stock of the table. Now here's a classic case of really tough from Pot 1 and 2, as you can see, but very winnable in Pot 3 and 4, and that's why I have them as a team that will be able to advance based on that. In 23rd, we have VfB Stuttgart, who shocked everyone last season as they finished in second ahead of Bayern in the Bundesliga. They haven't been in the Champions League since the 2009-10 season, so it's been a while, but they are building a fantastic project in Stuttgart once again after losing their way for a while and getting relegated. They do have some very difficult matches, such as against PSG, Real Madrid, and Juve, whereas I see the Atalanta fixture as a winnable one for them. On top of that, their pot 3 and 4 matches are all winnable, or should I say matches that I don't exactly see them losing. They did lose Girassi and a couple others, but I think they'll turn it around. Shakhtar are Champions League mainstays at this point. They always have an exciting talent or two, and this go around, it's Sudakov. They were drawn against Bayern and Borussia, Arsenal and Atalanta, but their pot 3 and 4 teams aren't so bad, besides PSV, who will be strong. The match against Atalanta, they're the toughest team for me to read, but Shakhtar to do enough to make the playoffs. Lille were one of the teams that made it in via the qualifiers, crushing Mourinho's dreams of taking Fenerbahce straight into the Champions League upon signing with them. They are always a difficult side, but beatable. They have players that can really hurt you, such as Jonathan David, Angel Gomes, or Zagrova. Also, they just signed Andre Gomes for their midfield, so an interesting team under Bruno Genesio that will finish mid-table. Based on their performances against the pot 3 and 4 teams, except Sporting. And I think they can steal a result against one of either Juve or Atleti potentially. Feyenoord will be just ahead of Lille in my personal list with 3 very difficult matches from pots 1 and 2, but I think they may get revenge on Benfica, which will ultimately be Benfica's demise and Feyenoord's difference maker when it comes to their results. They can beat Sparta, Girona, Salzburg, potentially Lille as well. We'll see if they can perform without Arne Slot. They're now managed by Brian Priske. They're slightly off the mark domestically, but it's still mega early in their time with a new manager. It's always going to be hard to follow up Slot. AS Monaco are a team that I think were kind of the trap team in pot 4 alongside Aston Villa. You don't want to play them necessarily, as they showed towards end of that last season how good they can be under Hutter. They're always a hotbed for talent, and nothing changes there. They brought in Lamine Camara, who is a baller, and new forward George Elena, who adds to their attack also. They were indeed drawn against Aston Villa, which will be a tough match, along with their matches against Arsenal away, Inter away, but Barcelona at home. I think they'll beat Red Star, Dinamo, Bologna, and potentially Benfica as well, and make it into the playoffs. Finally, Atalanta. How do we deal with the Europa League champions? They are so hot and cold, not just from season to season, but within seasons as well. That said, they were mega hot at the end of last season, ending Leverkusen's undefeated run. No all-conquering season for Leverkusen thanks to Atalanta. However, Lookman seems to be on the outs with Gasperini at the moment, a huge part of their success as well. But as streaky as I find Atalanta, I think they'll do enough to be firmly mid-table and advance based on their performances from Shakhtar onward. I know this isn't the order of the matches, but you catch my meaning. All right, the other trap team from pot 4, Aston Villa. They make it into the Champions League for the first time since the 80s. In fact, they won the damn thing back in 1982 over Bayern Munich in the final. But anyway, they have 2 wins from 3 matches so far this season in the Prem. They added quality, they lost quality, and with Unai Emery in charge, they will definitely be a difficult proposition. This man is the master of knockout competitions. He was pretty surprised with how badly they were smoked by Olympiacos, the eventual champions, 6-2 on aggregate. Whew. They don't have the most difficult draw. Getting Club Brugge as that second pot 2 team, pot 3, all beatable for them. I don't know how to feel about AC Milan. I do wonder if Fonseca is going to patch things up with Teo and Rafael Leão, or if those guys will cause issues. Granted, they helped get them a draw when they came on the pitch, but it seems like tensions are strange. Some Milanistas are giving up on Fonseca, saying he isn't a fit already, as they are also winless in 3. A bit of a mess. Stay the course, and they could be a tricky side, especially once Morata is back. They made some good signings. Abraham was an interesting deal, as that will get some depth in the striker position if he can stay healthy, of course. Something they hadn't had for a while. They don't have the most difficult draw. I fancy them to win each of their matches against the pot 3 and 4 sides, and maybe a win over Club Brugge as well. We'll see though. This is all conjecture, right? RB Leipzig, a team that consistently loses their talent and yet finds a way to consistently challenge for cups. They recently ended Bayer Leverkusen's domestic unbeaten run that ran all the way back to mid-2013 and are a perfect 3 wins from 3 in domestic competitions this season. They don't have the easiest pot 1 and 2 opponents, Liverpool, Inter, Juventus, and Atletico. No breeze at all. But in Atleti and Juve, they definitely have a shot. Hell, these guys gave Real Madrid a really difficult time last season, didn't they? They're always tough. They've added some new names like Antonio Nusa and Gertruida, a familiar one in Xavi Simons again, and they will not go down easily. I have Simons' old team, PSV, finishing just ahead of RB Leipzig. Reason being, PSV are starting the season in a similar manner to how dominant they were last season under Peter Bosz. Just look at their first 4 matches in the Eredivisie. The matchup with Champions League finalist Borussia Dortmund could have gone either way last season if Luuk de Jong had a bit more composure. They have a great squad and a relatively favorable draw. There's at least 4 matches there against Girona, Brest, Red Star, and Shakhtar that PSV will go into as absolute favorites. Maybe against Sporting as well. I expect them to be a bit of a dark horse in this season, could surprise everyone and go even higher than where I have them. I have a feeling that Bayer Leverkusen are going to have a bit of a sophomore slump this season. Now, in saying that, basically anything that wasn't the same perfection as last season would be perceived as a slump, right? And while I don't think they will have a disastrous season that has everyone asking, how did they do it last season? Was it a fluke? I do think they will come down to earth a bit, especially in the Champions League. Inter, Liverpool, AC Milan, and Atleti, then the not so easy pot 3 fixtures of Feyenoord and RB Salzburg. But they will win against Stade Brestois and Sparta Praha. So them coming down to earth is finishing in a playoff spot, not in the automatic round of 16 spots. I think they'll do well still. I think another team that will provide some shocks is Sporting. They're just so damn good under Ruben Amorim, and the scary thing is that it feels like they're getting better. More young phenoms coming through their ranks, and then of course you have Gyökeres leading the way. Man, the man has 14 goal contributions for club and country from 7 matches. He's doing it again, folks. They can shock anyone on their day, and they have the Premier League's first and second teams from last season in their fixtures, but Leipzig and Brugge are beatable from pot 2, as well as their pot 3 and 4 clubs. Besides PSV, they will roll these other teams. Borussia Dortmund, the finalists. They have a new coach in Nuri Sahin and are still figuring things out a bit. No more Mats Hummels to lead them. He's moved on to AS Roma. Marco Reus, he moved to MLS. So they could lack some leadership characters in the dressing room, but they've also bought well. And despite Sahin being a newcomer at this level, at least with coaching, I think that Dortmund could develop into a decent side under him, as there is a lot of belief in him as a manager, and their draw isn't too bad. Barcelona and Real Madrid. Okay, that's not easy, but look at the rest of it. All matches that Dortmund could win. I have Atletico Madrid just ahead of them in 10, 2 spots away from the automatic spots. Atletico is typically one of these difficult teams to read. They are a streaky team, but they've certainly added some very interesting talent to Simeone's squad this summer. Robin Lenormand to defense, Conor Gallagher in the midfield, Julian Alvarez to the attack. There's a good team there, and they will fancy their chances with the draw they were handed, besides perhaps PSG, as I think PSG will be very good. We'll get to them later. Atletico are probably equal to or better than every team they were drawn against, so they should do well, but this is Atleti. They complicate things in their own way. They'll probably smash PSG and then lose to Sparta Praha or something, That's kind of what they do, and that's why we love watching Atleti. Or at least I do. And the final team that I see just missing out on automatic qualification to the round of 16 is Juve. Look, it's early days, but I like what I'm seeing from Thiago Motta and this Juve side. I like the acquisitions they made in the market as well, and I like the draw that they got. Not easy, but could have been much worse, all things considered. PSV and Man City will be tough. Villa could be difficult depending on how they continue to grow this season, but I really think Juve will be a solid side. I like a central midfielder as a manager, but seriously, Motta showed his worth with Bologna, and it's looking good early doors with Juve. So yes, these are the teams that I see as the knockout playoff teams. What do you think? Cool with you? No? Okay, let's move on. PSG is the team that I have just sneaking into the top 8. I like this PSG project. I did a video on how I finally like how they are constructing their squad, as it is packed with young ballers, some of which from their own academy, which is a nice change. Warren Zaire-Emery, João Neves is balling out. Bradley Barcola is going to be a big problem. Kenyon Lee is fantastic. Nuno Mendes. I mean, I like what I'm seeing, and a great manager to tie it all together. They're handed a difficult draw, but I am banking on them rising to the occasion. Should be able to beat all of the teams in the bottom row. Should have a decent match with Atleti, and then you never know from there. Barcelona, I know, some of you may be thinking, hey, what are these guys doing here? Well, for one, they're playing pretty well under Hansi Flick, who is typically decent in this competition, and two, their draw is pretty easy. Look at this. Bayern will give them an unholy beatdown, perhaps. I mean, they always do. They should be well matched with Dortmund, and they should be beating Atalanta. They will beat the rest of the teams, though, besides maybe Monaco, who could cause issues this season, and that is why I have Barca up there. I think they're going to do really well. Arsenal in 6th, and they're a very good team, very good, though that doesn't always translate to their Champions League performances. They were nearly beaten by Porto, took a shootout to beat Porto. Then against Bayern, they didn't really provide much danger at all. And this was a Bayern that hated their own coach. They didn't hate him, not quite. But hey, they will have a couple of tough matches against PSG and Inter. They have previously struggled against Sporting, so that could be a challenge for them. They could have PTSD there. But you'd back them to win the rest, right? Speaking of Inter, I have them ahead of Arsenal as they continue to look great under Inzaghi. What a manager, man. Really love Inzaghi. After that surprising draw with Genoa to start their Serie A season, they have right the ship with a 2-0 win over Lecce and then a 4-0 spanking of Atalanta. Not much as far as the Mercato goes for Inter, but Inzaghi makes a team greater than the sum of its parts, and the parts are great. I'm looking forward to watching that 2023 Champions League final rematch against City in particular. I have Bayern in 4th, and I don't know if that's too high for them or too low. I mean, I really need to be convinced of this Vincent Kompany signing as manager. They didn't look stupendous in one of their matches against Wolfsburg, nor did they look that great against Freiburg, but Müller came on and they looked much better. But they at least are getting positive results, right? So until things go wrong, there's nothing to talk about. And looking at their draw, there's a great chance that things will go right. Bayern versus Benfica is like an auto win for Bayern, as Benfica sucks against German sides, unfortunately. Barcelona is an auto win typically for Bayern, but we'll see now that Barcelona have a German spy as their coach. Liverpool have Real Madrid to worry about, but the rest of their fixtures, all matches that they have a real shot of winning. Arne Slot will welcome Xabi Alonso back to Anfield, which is fun. Leipzig and Milan away could prove to be tricky, but with the way that Slot has Liverpool playing already, you can see them being a top side in this competition. I think part of that is that it wasn't really a revolutionary change from Jurgen Klopp, just some little adjustments that so far are bearing a ton of fruit, and they'll continue to get better. And the final two, which are basically 1A and 1B, really hard to separate. However, I have Man City in 2nd at the moment, simply down to their schedule being a bit more demanding than Real Madrid's in my opinion. Sporting, Feyenoord, Juventus, Inter, PSG, those are the main ones that are difficult. Well, Feyenoord is kind of the imposter of that group. Not sure why I mentioned them. However, City is playing super well and Haaland is rested, fit, and looking dominant and focused. No more scuffing strikes like he was last season, you know? He's looking very scary, so we'll see. He could be that lift into first. But Real Madrid's draw isn't a walk in the park necessarily, but I do find that it is a tiny bit easier than Manchester City's. Now, Real Madrid perhaps haven't played as well as City thus far in the very, very early season, but they are starting to build up some momentum now. And when they do get that momentum, they will be scary as hell. Not like I need to tell you guys, however, you already know how good Real Madrid is in the Champions League historically, so there's little to convince. So that's how I have the top 8, the teams that get to skip around. How do you guys see it though? Please let me know, as I always enjoy hearing about how you guys know I'm wrong definitively because you have some information from the future or something. You guys are the best. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. We'll see you soon.